Good afternoon. I'm Christine Hoffman, the public museologist, and I am here today making a video about AR games in the museum. It's going to be a series of about 3 videos talking about the work that I've done with augmented reality games in the museum setting as a way of both outreach and public history, and why I think augmented reality games are part of the picture that needs to be considered for the future of museums as they become more publicly involved organizations. And so this first part, I am going to simply discuss what augmented reality games are and why museums need to be aware of them and involved with them. This video is coming a bit later than I'd like, but better late than never. And why this is all relevant. So augmented reality games are really rising in popularity. I pulled these figures late last month after Thanksgiving, and you can really see that apps like Pokemon Go, over 100 million installs. Ingress Prime, over 10 million installs. Harry Potter Wizards Unite, though I am by no means advocating the views of that particular author. Jurassic World Alive, 10 million, and Walking Dead at 5 million installs. So this is a lot of global players. And this was just from the Google App Store. This is not counting also what's been installed on the Apple side. This is just to give you an idea of how immensely popular these games are. What is AR gaming? Augmented reality, AR is short for augmented reality, and it differs from VR or virtual reality in that AR experiences sort of overlap our present reality, whether you're looking at it through glasses or through a phone. It uses the environment around you as part of the game versus creating a separate simulated experience that's different from the here and now. Almost all of these AR games require you to travel, to go places in the real world in order to participate with different sites in the game. And one of the first largely successful AR games was Ingress. And the next video is really going to get into what is Ingress and why it was so massively popular and why museums should be aware of it. These games have been around now for a number of years, but they really started getting popular when Pokemon Go came out. Like, that's when they exploded. It's a new way of interacting. I know some of you might be like, okay, so we've got these games, yeah. I know people come to the museum and they play them. And there have been some negative articles about, kids playing this game smashed this sculpture, or, left a mess, or the site was an inappropriate place to play, or what have you. But that is really an audience out there that museums want to be reaching. And so I was sitting at a panel at a Texas Association of Museums annual meeting with some really interesting people, and they were all talking about different ways of utilizing tech within the museum sector. And when it came down to it, the AR programs I was talking about were about the only way that was really approachable for small museums. A small town history museum, probably not going to have a huge maker program. There's a good chance that the volunteers working at that museum wouldn't know what to do with a 3D printer. And maybe they would. At my museum, they certainly wouldn't have. But these are solutions that are accessible and available for people to use. So one of the questions that came up during that session that we sort of addressed to people is, how do you define a visitor? Because the definition of visitor, or someone served in the community, varies. It's changing. I bet if you asked 20 years ago, they would simply say a museum visitor is somebody who, came in the door, bought a ticket, and looked at the exhibits. But it's changing, especially now with COVID. A lot of museums closed down for a while or very much cut their numbers. And many museums turned to online programming to have a way of reaching their audiences. But is that not a visitor? Are they not partaking of the museum's resources? Are they not being served? And then it starts looking at is then a museum's audience becomes much broader. It's no longer the local community or just visitors to that community. You have people attending museum events from all over the world. And that's one of the things that I realized with AR gaming is your museum might be open 8 to 5 or 10 to 4 or whatever hours it's open. But people playing these games, they are playing these games 24/7 globally. 4 in the morning, somewhere out in your community is somebody riding around, capturing portals or catching Pokemon and what have you. And a lot of these programs have a way in which local sites are represented. But that information, for the most part, is entered by players. And I really feel like you need to own your branding in this new augmented reality real estate. Do you want because some of these with Ingress and with Pokemon Go, if you don't know the real story of the site, but you know it's significant, you just enter something that sounds good. Throw historic something here, or maybe you make up a story related to the game. But I know one of the first things I did when I got involved with augmented reality gaming is I took over editing the information for the sites in the game that were on our property. And so now they became branded with our hours and our proper name and our proper history. And now everybody who is interacting with those sites was getting a little history lesson as they traveled. And is that not something that's just incredible for a museum to be able to educate people while they're not even realizing they're being educated because they're having fun playing a game? I mean, this is right down our alley, and these games are easy to learn. They take a little patience, they take a little time, they do take a smartphone and decent, internet connection. But this is a great way to have fun doing outreach. So this is Ingress. And, one of their taglines is the world around you is not what you see. And I added, if you can't beat them, may as well join them. These folks are going to be on your museum property when you're closed. And you can ignore them or you can reach out to them. And so I started playing and I started communicating with people. And you start seeing the people here, there's this feedback of what players are in town, what side they're on, and what sites they're on. And so when I would see something would get sort of captured, it's sort of a capture the flag type game, but in augmented reality. I would message them in the game, say, hey, this is a museum and we're open and we have free admission and I play, come say hi. And they'll come in. And now you have people who did not set out to go to a museum that day. They had no intention to go, come in, and my reputation spread. So it became that many of the players in the entire state, and Texas was a huge state. Still is, but I'm no longer in Texas, and it's a huge state, and many of the players knew who I was, and it was like, hey, even if you're on the opposite team, stop in and talk to her, she's cool. And now this might not work if you're the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, but when you're a small museum, you often do have a bit of time to say hi to people as they come through. And it created a connection, and I got volunteers, and I had an audience of people to reach out to for events. And that's not a bad thing. So this was sort of my introduction to the idea of what augmented reality games are and how they can be useful. If you have questions about this or just want to comment, this is my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. And I will be uploading videos in the upcoming days going into Ingress in depth and Pokemon Go in depth. And thank you.